Let's talk about the Warhammer games that came out during 2022, what happened to them, and if they're good or not. 2022 was one of the most active years for Warhammer ever. This came right after the great community cleansing where Games Workshop wasn't too fond of us filthy degenerates getting our grubby little hands all over their characters and intellectual property, shutting down some of the community's most favorite fan creations, including things like If the Emperor Had a Text-to-Speech Device, and more. With it happening in 2021. With this, Games Workshop promised that there would be some more stuff coming out. Games, miniatures, community stuff, maybe even some shows, but you need Warhammer Plus for that. Still, it would really help people get into the hobby, especially when the miniatures cost so darn much. And you could buy some Warhammer games for like 20 bucks. And if you want to see more Warhammer gaming content from me, make sure to like and subscribe to show me your interest. Warhammer Total War 3 is based on the debunked and abandoned lore of Warhammer fantasy. This one, more than any other, seemed to be based around the end times, with all 4 Chaos Gods being represented with their own warlords and factions, as well as the Ogres if you pre-ordered and the Grand Cafe in Kislev if you just want to play as normal people. Balancing in these Warhammer Total War games has always been crazy, with like in this game, with Khorne and Tzeentch being factions that can do some of the craziest things ever in any Total War game. With the gameplay melding real-time strategy during army fights and turn-based strategy when you're on the world map. I, along with the rest of the games I'm talking about, have played them pretty much at launch. There have been some issues, including crashes, loading issues, and general imbalance, but that was part of the charm of it. That you really needed a good computer if you didn't want to chug your way through these battles that had more than 1,000 things happening at one time on it. Skarbrand the Bloodthirster was able to destroy the entire map in one turn, while Kugas sits on his little throne and moves ever so slightly and then ends his. Mortal Empires got added with the content of the other 2 games being added into one large map, with it filling out practically the whole world at this point. So it's one nice big package if you own the other games, with you being able to play all the lords from those games too, with minor changes. Chaos Dwarves just got added as of recently. They're pretty cool, kinda overpowered, but who isn't? So what's next? Mostly some more armies, more lords, and more factions. But chieftains, I'm gonna go ahead and say a bad take. I wanna see Stormcast Eternals, bruh. Now I know they're from Age of Sigmar, and that's the worst thing to ever exist. Plagues upon the ones who cancelled fantasy and made that. They even killed my boy Warzag, and for that, I'm a little peeved. But it would be fun, they look so cool! They fight cool, and I want to see some of them in my personal favorite big army game. I personally don't know how you add them, but Sigmar willing, am I right? I think the biggest travesty of the game has to do with the 2022 Game Awards. It was going against a bunch of other games. The main one being Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and it lost. A labor of love lost to Mario and Raveman's Raving Rabbids XCOM game as the strategy game of the year. We all live in a hellscape of unknowable proportions. Chaos Gate Demon Hunters is a video game about the Grey Knights, with them fighting against the forces of the Chaos God Nurgle, with a few named characters peeking their cute little heads in, with it being one of the most insane hard XCOM turn-based strategy games I've ever played. It destroyed me and turned me into a marketable plush. If you played XCOM, it plays like that with classes and crisis management being a large part of it. Fighting against Nurgle is always fun and a constant for most of the games this year, with it feeling like it might be the year of Nurgle, with things like Nerdlings, Great Unclean Ones, Prigmarines, and more showing up. And every time I get to see Nurgle in a game, I kinda smile ear to ear. The overall game came out to praise, with it being a fun little thing to vibe on late at night while you min-max your team, staring at small stat differences, with it overall being wacky and a crazy game for you to play. With it being my personal favorite XCOM-like game. I still haven't finished it though, but I have played most of it. It's super hard, man. There has been some DLC added, with 2 classes being added, which include a Dreadnought and a Tech Marine. The game is seemingly ruined horribly by this DLC though, with the Dreadnought not even being able to be used that often, with the game having a difficulty spike unlike any other game ever seen if you download this DLC. I haven't bought it mainly because of these reviews. Perthavak here goes dumb stupid crazy though, and the developers of this game were cooking when they decided to make her a named character. Tacticus is a mobile gacha game that is released about at the midway point through the year that I have heard nothing about besides seeing ads for it on YouTube. With it being one of those time sync mobile games that is pretty darn annoying to play. I'm saying this while getting the one character I actually wanted out of all of them. With me getting a cool looking war boss and mega armor, that is pretty awesome. With them getting a chain axe and a grot that does bonus damage on melee hit. The game kinda sucks though. I'm not very fond of mobile games like this, and doing any sort of thing that feels like a second job sucks. If you don't like mobile games where you'll be kicked from the clan because you didn't participate in the clan war because you were hospitalized and in a coma, you can probably skip it. Go buy a real game, and don't spend money on this one. If you do want to play a version of a game like this, I would say Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle is my favorite. That might be because the grind wasn't too bad and I had a pretty goated set of characters. If you do want a 40k mobile game, this one might be for you though. Don't get too attached. It's toxic and wants your money. If you have a computer, you're better off buying one of the older games instead. Shootas Blood Teef is a pseudo-sequel to games like Gun, Store, and Cannoli, with it being put together in a lab by the guys over at Rogueside Studio. It's a side-scroller shoot-'em-up, and the overall game is pretty indie, with you playing as an Orc Flash Kid or any other classes aren't as good, but still fun. The art style of the game is one to behold, and honestly reminds me of Scribblenauts more than anything else. The lighthearted tone mixed with the horrible universe that the game takes place in just makes me blush. It perfectly captures the Orc state of mind in this horrible universe. You go to a human-occupied world, destroy an entire hive city, including a bunch of gene stealer cultists, and it's just played for laughs. It's just a good time. With you ripping apart the way of life for so many people, including blowing a hole right into the hive city, or even destroying a giant knight in one-on-one combat. Which isn't very lore accurate, but come on guys. Let's have some fun. Let the game be fun. Let the game do what it wants. You can tell that the people who made this game had a real fun time making it. It comes through in having fun gameplay with things like multiple different weapons that you can use, including a bolter variant and some wacky shotguns that never cease to make me smile. The game is a labor of love, and I love it for that. From things like the treasure room on the lead flagship, and getting to see some of those cute yet intimidating white scars. With them making some considerably deep references for a game that was just supposed to be kind of fun and chill. My main issue with the game is that it's kind of super short. Let's think about a game that is kind of similar to size and scope. The best game ever made, Castle Crashers. That game with the main campaign takes about 5 hours to beat, with multiple different characters you can choose and weapons. While Shootas Blood Teef can be done in like an hour and 30 minutes or 2 hours if you're trying to be generous with some of the encounters. It's a super fun game and I recommend it, and most other outlets do too, with it being something you can play on pretty much any computer. Darktide is probably the most controversial game on this list, not because the developers are horrible people and did anything bad, just that they had some iffy business practices in how they wanted to push out their game. This is business casual for the developers over at Fat Shark Studio, with them releasing a game that doesn't have a lot of content at the start and then adding stuff as time goes on, with it being seen in literally every Vermintide game they've made. The game is fundamentally good though. Graphics, sound, gameplay feel, and tone all work great, if you can run the game, that is. This game makes PCs become air fryers. It's so graphically intensive that even bulkier PCs still sometimes have frame rate issues. All of it is some of the best I've seen to represent Warhammer 40k, with it being an awesome horde-based combat game, cleaving through enemies with special units trying to disrupt the gameplay loop. Everything besides that is iffy though, with the game coming out feeling like it was still in beta. Some functionality wasn't even in shops until recently. The game plays like an RPG version of Left 4 Dead, with there being classes and progression, with rarity of weapons, and with roles on which attributes they might have. The best way to play this game is not have many expectations going into it, just going in with friends and just having some fun. The game by no means reinvents wheels, but it does make that wheel look very nice. It's a fun thing to just spend time playing and not take too seriously, and it's one of my favorites. And I can get why people and reviewers don't like it, giving the game about a 6 out of 10, because it does have a lot of flaws. The opportunity to play a first-person game as an Ogren is one I'll never forget though, with me really liking the game. With me recommending that you try it if you have Xbox Game Pass, even though the player counts on there are kinda low. And that was the last Warhammer game in 2022. What do you guys think about the Warhammer games that came out last year? Is it one of the best years for Warhammer yet, or do you miss the good old days of putting together metal miniatures? Or before the Ultramarines got turned into a bunch of Mary Sues? What was your favorite year of Warhammer 40k? 2022 was pretty darn good. And what is your favorite game to come out this year? Out of all the games, I put the most time on Darktide, but I gotta say Shootas Blood Teef is a game that completely goes after my heart, and I love it for its personality alone. If you like this and you want to see some more content from me covering Warhammer 40k games and things in the hobby, make sure to leave a subscription, like, and comment down below. Till next video, fellas.